I came here in 1988. I was petitioned by my sister, our eldest sister Mila, who now lives in Sydney. Um, Pretty much economic, I would say, because obviously at the time, 1988 was, I think, if I remember correctly, was still the martial law time, and there's so much economic and political uncertainty of the future. Well, I guess after living here for almost 15 years now, I would say it's pretty much my home now. And actually, I was living in Sydney before coming here to WA. But as I mentioned earlier to you, Adam, my mother became diagnosed with dementia, and she pretty much begged me to come here and be with her. As I think 6 years ago, while being a carer for my mom, just to keep me creatively flowing and not being bored, I guess. So we established this Filipino community theater. It's a non-profit, non-stock theater with our president, Conchita Blubin, and it's called PETAWA, which is Philippine Educational Theater Artists of Western Australia, Incorporated. It's a duly registered non-profit group. So being artistic, I guess, I find it such a creative way of relaxing my mind, I guess, writing and directing and sometimes acting, mainly for the community. First thing, as actually we actually miss, for me anyway, is food. You miss the authenticity of the food, the actual flavor that you long for. And second to that, I would say language would be another barrier or hindrance that people encounter. For me, when I first arrived here in 1988, would you believe, whenever we see a Filipino, like we bump into a fellow Filipino, you were like, Filipino! It's like winning a lottery. This is 1988. We were so excited when we see a fellow Filipino. But nowadays, there's so many Filipinos here now. I believe it's almost like 25,000 at the moment, Filipinos in WA. So it's growing and as a fast growing community. So it is still fun, but I would say for the newcomers, it's because they came in waves. I think the waves that are coming now are the what they call the 457, the skilled workers. So they're more skilled, and when they arrive here, they're pretty much have a job. It's so different with us when we first arrive here. We have to adjust with the language. We have to really start from nowhere and look for job. In fact, my first job here, when I first got here in Perth, was to deliver mails, the junk mails. And the funny thing is, me and my sister said, let's do this. It sounds easy. Well, we didn't have a car at the time, so we have to walk miles and miles lugging those junk mails from house to house, only to earn $20 the whole day. But that's a big deal at the time, I guess. But it's also part of my assimilation and learning curve. Yes, definitely. We have maintained I would say at least 50% of the Filipino culture and tradition. One of them is religion, very important for Filipinos. So we celebrate the annual Santo Niño festival, which is like this Santo Niño. It's baby Jesus. So it's I think, third Sunday of January. So we do that for the community even here in Perth. So we have like a Santo Niño fiesta and other things like Philippine Independence Day and, of course, community gatherings for other functions. It's actually, we still, I would say, 50-50 as well, still speaks Filipino. And as a full-time carer at the time with my mom, 100% speaks in Filipino. But because she's from Visaya, so we actually speak half Filipino and half Visayan. She's from down south, from the Visayan region. So especially when her dementia progressed, she started going back to her native language or dialect, which is the Visayan. So sometimes I can't cope with what she's saying, but blah, 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 blah. So that's it. But with our community, most of the time we still speak Filipino among ourselves. but it's more now there's what we call a Taglis, which is Tagalog English. So that is very common lately, especially for the sort of educated side of the Filipinos. They speak like it's kind of in thing to talk in Tagalog. It's half Filipino and half English. Oh, that's a little bit tricky because at the moment when I think I think in English already, which is funny. So to say and pick up if there's any difference between thinking or speaking in Filipino and speaking in English, I think not a lot, but as I mentioned earlier, if it's a conscious thing, but if you're unconscious or like accidentally tripped over, then you speak in your native dialect and you say, whatever in Tagalog. So that's still the first thing that comes out of your mouth. Um, Probably also there are things or words that are bit different and bit hard to express in English. As I mentioned to you earlier, I do write plays. 90% are in English, but 10% are still in Filipino because I just cannot. You lose the meaning if you translate it in English. Yeah, definitely. There's been a shift of the way people look at Filipinos. As I mentioned earlier, primarily I think because of the type of waves of migrants, Filipino migrants that came in. Because unfortunately, the first migrants were also technocrats when Australians were trying to invite teachers, engineers to help build the country. And then after that, the next wave came where unfortunately the mail order brides, Australian marrying to Filipinas, and that has left a very negative image of Filipinas. In this is just my own personal perception, and now with the third wave of migrants coming in, the technocrats, that the younger generation that are really tech savvy, most of them are IT even, IT people, engineers, and that has really brought in a different respect for them, their working ethics, and a lot of employees mainly are vouching for Filipinos because they have very good work ethics, and that I think has sort of cascaded down to the Philippine community. When someone says, "Oh, you're Filipino. Oh, you're a good worker," they're very very excellent people, and obviously the community at large when they have community functions, the hospitality, the friendliness has sort of trickled down to the non-Filipinos, and they can always sort of changing the way they look at Filipinos. Yes, because Filipinos are really family oriented. So in fact, there's a joke in among us that when we go to visit or holiday in the Philippines, we want to bring as much Australian things to the Philippines. But on the way back, when you leave Philippines, you want to bring as much as Filipino product back to Australia. So you're sort of halfway, but it is part of our culture to go back and visit our relatives and what we're used to. But personally, with me, the last time I visited was almost 8 or 9 years ago. And when I got there, I felt strange in a way because most of my friends are no longer there. They're also overseas already. And the places where I like to go are mostly gone. So I felt like a foreigner in my own land in a sad way. So that's what I felt anyway. So, but I don't know with others, but that's just my own because all my sisters are all here. I only have one sister left in the Philippines. So, my my two sisters, my one sister's in Sydney, one in Wollongong, and one here in Perth with me, and one in the Philippines. So, and my father passed away already, and my mom recently passed away. So, I pretty much don't have such relative ties anymore to really visit. But I do love visiting Philippines because of the food. Oh my God, I long for the authentic food, and you can binge any time of the day. I really felt this feeling on the way back here for that trip. So I said, I guess this must mean that Australia is my home now, because before going, I kept thinking, oh, I miss home. I want to go there. I want to see this. I want to see that. But after going there, realizing things have changed and things have moved on, I'm a foreigner in my own land. So that's my, what do you call this? The penny dropped when I was on the way back. I said, well, I have to admit now that Australia is now my home. Thank you.